Hello, my name is Kim McCaskill, and I'm a narrative director, creative director, amongst other things. You might know me, you might not, but if you do know me, you probably know what this video is going to be about, and it is in response to the 34-page report, which was submitted almost a full month ago, um, and also about the board and governance issues that we still have, because this report actually uncovered some very big concerns for the UK industry, and I want to bring them up today. Now, to go back a little bit, this all started because I'd one incident with Jason that I'd never heard about him before, didn't know anything about him at all. But I was set up to be in a meeting with him and two screenwriters who are very well known for incredible movies. I won't say their name here, but I was trying to get their next IP made into a game, and Jason was recommended for that. Now, a meeting was set up, and I turned up, these two writers turned up, and Jason was not there. So I decided to call him just to make sure everything was okay. And all I can say is I don't know like what was going on, but I don't know if he was drunk. I don't know if this was normal, but he was just shouting and screaming. And when I say shouting and screaming, I really do mean that. It was so staggering. Like, I haven't been shouted at like that since I was a junior and probably too scared to speak up. And I think we've all been there in that situation before. So to have this again, it really took me back to those places. And I thought, how dare you? Yeah, I was physically shaken by the end of it. It was rage, it was shock. I was really upset to the point where I thought, don't type angry, go to bed. And if you still really feel strongly about it, say something. And that's exactly what I did. And it was meant to be a one-off post. Who the hell is this guy? What does he think, he's up to? This isn't something we should stand for. And this is what I learned that, that this individual was the co-chairman of the UK Video Game Council, the chairman of the TIGA as well, amongst other positions, that he's an OBE and he desperately wants to be a knight. And I honestly couldn't believe it because this whole list of accolades and positions did not match the experience that I had. And so when I made this post and people started to tell me more about him, it was coming along with other accounts from former and existing employees, almost 40 of them. And I have to be honest, some of the stuff didn't make the report. And it's mostly that stuff that I think is gonna haunt me till the day I die. I really hope that those specific people do find um just find the strength or to tell their story because I can't imagine, I digress. But for the people that did um, um, come forward for this report, we provided a 34-page report. Now, here is how these reports are made. This is what should have happened. Okay, I threw out in my own pocket, nearly about 500 quid. I hired a freelancer from People Per Hour, which is a freelancer website. I had never met this person, Amanda, before, but she understood the assignment fully. She knew exactly what she was meant to do. She was meant to be there so that people who wanted to speak could speak to her, schedule a call, tell their story, show any evidence that they wanted to show, basically verify that they are who they say that they are, and also take their account. Then what she would do is she would take away their name or anything that might be seen as identifiable information. And by the end of it, she presented this very professional, well done 34-page report, which had everything verbatim and then also condensed into an AI summary, just because sometimes that's a bit easier to digest. It was a very big document. We already highlighted in a previous post, about 11 counts of abuse of power and so on, and, mishandling of government funds and how much of this is exactly true, I will never be able to tell you because I wasn't the investigator. I do not know the names of the people that came forward. I do not know the evidence that was presented. I just paid for the report to be done for the sole purpose of not putting it out publicly, of sending it to the very boards that we rely on for the governance of the UK video game industry. Now, what should have happened is these boards, TIGA UK, the UK Video Game Council, they should have all looked at this report and the MPs that are connected as well, the so the charity. the charity committee of charity. I can't remember. It's a government body, and I can't remember the name of it. But I have been speaking to them, so I do apologise. What they should have done is they should have taken this report, and if they found the allegations to be concerning enough, if they went, you know what, this could be indicative of systemic corruption, um, they should have done their own third party investigation. Now, obviously, via the whistleblowers policy, they could not be in contact with the people that came forward, not knowing that they were in the report. No, that's not how that works. But what they can do is they can have their own third-party investigation to go through things like HR records, HR meetings, finance records. This is something that they can do, even as a non-exec director of these boards. This is something that they can do. And if they do find something significant, then yes, they can then escalate it to company house. They can remove that person from the board. They can do all sorts of things. This is what we rely on our boards and councils to do. Here's what happened. Absolutely nothing. Well, I say nothing. Little things did happen, but on the whole, absolutely nothing. I had my first meeting with UK, I think last week. TIGA ignored me completely, aside from one letter to say that they will not be getting involved because they deemed it to be a private legal dispute, despite the fact that this whole report is about Jason's positions in power and the governance of the UK. That was seen as a private legal matter, and that is not the case at all. And I would like to talk about TIGA separately because this does get quite linked. But to keep everything on track, I will just go through everything. Didn't hear from the other co-chairman, Nick Burton-Brown. Did hear from some nice MPs who were saying they were taking it very seriously, and I am going to have a meeting with some of them quite soon. And I did have that wonderful meeting with Yuki, who, well, they were not in a position to go, don't worry, Kim, you take a back seat, you've done your work, we're going to, act accordingly to your expectations. They said, here's where we're struggling. And I have to take my hats off to them because while I didn't agree with everything they said, the one thing that they did say was, okay, we're all individual bodies on this board. We don't have an independent party for you to submit this report to. So there's no regulation of people in positions of power. We don't have an ombudsman. We don't have an independent party to deal with these reports. So really, this is why the council was elected in the way that it was. It was not a democratic vote. They are not governed by any code of conduct or conflict of interest policy. That's not there. And essentially, they can kind of do what they want. And that for me was a bit of a red flag because over the course of this month, I realised that my involvement in this was not going to stop in the way that I hoped. I'd hoped that, you know what, 500 quid, investigator, report, bing bang bosh, over to the board, they'll take over. Maybe they'll find something, maybe they won't. That's up to them. That's how the process is meant to go. They didn't do anything. So instead, what happened, and this is what did happen, Jason decided, I kid you not, take a seat for this. He decided to hire, I say lawyers, but they're called reputational management lawyers. And they do exactly what you think. This isn't about finding facts. This is about controlling a narrative. This is like it's like a legal air freshener for someone who doesn't know how to wipe their own arse. That is essentially what a reputational management lawyer does. They are there to make sure that something doesn't go to court. And often it is because they use intimidation tactics. And I'm pretty sure they're not beholden to the board, but I'm sorry, the court of law, but I need to double check that one. That might not be fact. I think it might be. Don't stay with me on that one though. But yeah, but it's all intimidation tactics, and that is exactly what they did. They started to pester people who they believed to be involved in the report by constantly stalking their LinkedIn. I've got receipts of this, so this isn't defamation. I've got this on receipt, so this is not a defamation post. They did manage to get two of my posts taken down under the guise of defamation, even though LinkedIn said that they cannot. Is it the word ad? Okay, basically they can't judge, they can't say whether it's defamation or not, but they managed to get two of the posts taken down, and also they sent me a letter threatening libel and defamation. They were told to jog on. Then when they realised they weren't going to get very far with me, they went to the third party investigator, not once, not twice, but three times. They went to her through her letters to her door, her company's general email account as well. And they threatened her with a case of defamation and libel, even though she was just the hired third party investigator. And what they said was, this is a SARS. And if you don't know what a SARS is, it's a subject access data request or something like that. I think I've got the words jumbled up. Basically, any data that has your name in it, you have access to. I find this very useful when I've left companies to ask for that, because sometimes you do get privy to conversations that you weren't a part of, but your name was flagged up in. That was very useful for me in the past. It can be quite hurtful to read some things, but it's useful. Knowledge is power. But he got his lawyers to ask for that. Now, absolutely, Jason has every right in the world to have access to his own data. However, legally, he's not allowed to have that if it compromises the safety of whistleblowers. Now, because the boards weren't acting and because they were staying silent, Jason had the space to do this. And at this stage, he's not just complicit in systemic corruption, he's actively engaging in it. And if you look at the whistleblowers policy, there is a law that states he is not allowed to do this. So he is actively breaking the law because he's trying to get this investigator and myself to hand over the names of these people, the evidence that they had, because should as you're born, given Jason's track record, he loves to sue people. The only reason he hasn't sued me is because he knows I have that recording of him screaming and shouting at me, and the only way that that can be released is in court. So, Jason, you can jog on in that respect. Take me to court or just do one, okay? Because your intimidation factors, it's not going to work on me. But this is where this gets really sad, because there's a person who came forward, and I didn't know this at the time, and I still don't know who the person is, to be honest, but I believe I know who the person is because we've had further conversations. They're quite vulnerable. They've been going through a lot mentally. Um, well, I don't know the ins and outs of it. I believe that they were admitted at one point for either suicide ideation or a suicide attempt. That's as much as I'm going to say in the matter. For me, it's made me realize that actually this shouldn't have happened. And the only reason that their mental health took a nosedive is because I posted about Jason and his lawyers' intimidation tactics. That's on me. And I felt awful. I felt really, really bad because this person was terrified that Jason's lawyers were going to be successful in figuring out who they were. This is so wrong. This should have been a case of handing over a report to the boards to get another investigation on the go to see if there was anything significant. And instead, um, we got intimidation tactics from crappy lawyers who I have since reported to the SRA. Again, something the board should have done, not me, but I did it. There you go. You're welcome. Um, but yeah, I have to say that I'm very grateful to UK because we did have a meeting, and like I said, they were the people to really indicate that we don't have an independent body to deal with this. We don't have an ombudsman, which essentially means that the entire UK Video Game Council is unregulated. The people that are in these positions of power are unregulated. They don't have a conflict of interest policy. They don't have a code of conduct that they are expected to behave by. And that means that they can do whatever they want. And that's not like other industries. And not only can they do whatever they want, they can also not do things that they're expected to do or we would expect them to do. These are fancy titles that suggest power, that suggest governance, that suggest care, but actually they can just turn around and go, nah. And as a result of that, someone has been really badly affected by it. And I've been burned out by it. I didn't want to be here making this video. But I now believe that I have a duty to try and protect these 15 people as best as possible. I will be making sure that none of this information ever reaches Jason and his lawyers. And more than that, I will be pushing to the boards because I'm not going away. You've probably got that by now. I'm going to be pushing the boards to find an independent body that can deal with this properly because it is clear as day that none of you know how to do it. This should have been very easy. Even just Googling to go, Jason, have you seen this whistleblowing policy, this law that you're breaking? Maybe you want to think about it. But no, instead, what we have is a co-chairman who's like a fire alarm, but when you smash it, they just try and sue you. That's exactly what's happened to me here. And these are not the people that we should have in power. These are to have people in positions of influence, we should be voting them in democratically, and they should be regulated as well. That needs to be fixed because while this is about the 15 people at hand today, there's there's other people that could fall victim to this. Studio heads. Incidentally, I've never seen more studio heads and old bosses checking in on my LinkedIn. Nice to see you. It's like Jurassic Park. Every time I refresh my views, there's another fossil, but it's good to see you regardless. Feel free to say hi. But yeah, I was going to say something else and I've totally forgotten because I just thought of Jurassic Park. No, it's totally left me. But I will talk about TIGA now because when I think about how did these people get into these positions, well, they were nominated. Now, TIGA is an interesting one because they, from the get-go, not shockingly, were not going to get involved. This is a board that has, I think it's had like 80 plus directors in the past. I think there's around 12 still existing. It's always been an underground joke that it's a buy an award scheme. You know, if you look at, and again, this isn't defamation because if you look at the data and the ratio of people who sponsor and donate and also get awards, it's interesting. I've posted about it before, the actual data, so you're more than welcome to it. Now, that could be a joke for a while, but now that this UK Video Game Council has been formed, regardless of the power that they have or don't have, that's stepping into a much bigger space. And even though the space is bigger, the opportunity to behave badly becomes automatically smaller, or at least it should do. But again, it's not regulated. So this is where we're at. When I asked Yuki what the UK Video Game Council was about, I was told that it's about growth. That's it. It's just about growth. It's just about the growth of the industry. Now, this is where I don't agree with TIGA because I looked at the policy that was put forward about why this council was there. They're there for growth, and growth is a very big, vague word, so we have to be really careful not to, it's a legal term, cherry pick what it means and what it doesn't mean. These are about policymakers, funding, the direction of the video games industry. This is what the council is about. So yes, unfortunately, as much as and as lovely as Yuki were in the meeting, I have to say you do have a responsibility. Any non-exec director of any board that is involved in this council should have seen this report and demanded a third-party investigation. And every single person on this UK Video Game Council failed to do so. And as a result of that, we've had intimidation tactics, people falling mentally unwell, and it has been left as essentially a me problem. This should have stopped being a me problem about a month ago. So there we are. That's where it is. I would really love to be doing other things right now, but unfortunately, it's just scary times. What I've learned is that anyone that has a position of power is not regulated in this industry. And that is why people like Jason, who believe they are above the law, get to behave like they are above the law. And that is not a chairman that I want. I certainly hope it's not one that you would want. And even with the boards who are complicit for any reason, whether it's because they don't have the information or whether it's because they're choosing to be complicit in it knowingly, both are too poor. The standards are too poor for the boards that we need for this industry. So if you don't know your stuff, learn it. If you're going to just be complicit and be a yes man, get going. Give this to someone who can actually make a difference and actually believes in the well-being and safety of people. Because while you might turn around and say that this UK Video Game Council is just about growth, if we can't trust you as a board, that automatically affects the growth of the industry. We will have talent that won't want to come to the UK because they will understand that the security isn't there because our boards aren't regulated and the people in power aren't regulated. That is a big problem, and that's probably the most direct attack at the growth policy that they have. But with everything else in the policy making and funds and so on as well, it's all relative. Anyway, I have rambled on for God knows how long. I'm also a bit tired. Um, just thanks to everybody who's been so wonderful throughout this because I am not made of steel. I have my down days. I get really burned out. I've had my sobs over this. I've had my panic attacks. I've had my moments, and but doesn't make me any less jaggy or any less determined. And the message to the boards and to Jason is, I'm not going anywhere. So you might as well act on this because this is only going to get more and more public. Press is already picking it up. This is a governance issue. This is about our industry. And I believe that there are certain people involved on these boards that need investigated, and also the boards themselves need to start working out what their duty um, what their duties actually are. For example, I asked Yuki if one of these people in the report was a fully paid Yuki member, would you be able to protect them and safeguard them as per the whistleblowing policy? And they said no. And that's for a fully paid member. We've got a problem. We need to fix it. I'm exhausted. It would be really nice if someone else would like to take the helm. Thank you. Bye.